Hey there, every single body. How are you today? Well, I hope. Welcome to another episode, I guess, of Smoke and Mirrors. Today's episode is brought to you by belts. Remember those? Also brought to you by triangles. It's a good shape. It's a great instrument. They're triangles. Uh, this is the part where we have a song. Two lips are better than none, but four lips will give you some joy in the morning and joy. Let's stop this right now. Okay, here is your host, Carlos Kareem Wyndham. Hey, hey, gang, what's happening? It's 4:20 and 1. Let's go.
I'm with you.
Smoke him if you got him, but you're not supposed to talk until I introduce you, Mike. Okay, hold on. So the other magic is that I can see that our guest is partaking, and
Um,
and 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 and, and you'll
this
see that soon too. You'll see that soon. Man, be quiet. I said until I introduce you. Okay. Um, Mike can be open. No, yeah, I mean you can laugh or whatever if it's funny enough, but otherwise, shut up. Okay. Hey, everybody. I forgot what I was going to talk about. Oh, I remember. I remember. Okay, let's get through the things. It's 4:20. Today's a talk day, and because it's a talk day, that means chat day. We're going to be under the philosopher's tree in a little bit. I am going to be there with somebody that I've known for quite some time, and I'm going to be very happy to introduce to you Dr. Mark Cohen. We'll get there in a minute, though. We're not there yet. Right now, I want to remind you that if you dig what happens here, guess what? You can become a patron of it. There's a Michael right there who is a patron of it. There is a Natalie who's a patron of it. There's a Tarika, a Juliet. There are so many names. You could be one of those names. And if you become one of those names, guess what? You're going to get one of those trading cards right there with my stupid puss right on it, right on the front, telling a jokey joke. Look at that. And you can trade it with friends. You can play marbles and see if you win yours. It's great. As part of Super Smarty Week, I'm going to keep talking to Super Smarties even after today. Michael is a Super Smarty. You're going to see that. You're going to see. But also, guess who else is? Linda Chavers. Did you have a chance to listen to the conversation that we had recently on Myelin and Melanin? Well, if you did and you liked it, then you know we brought all the smoke. And we're going to bring some of it on our own with nobody else here except for her and me. That is one of those times that people say, her and I, that you fucking shouldn't. And I just want to address that real quickly. Also, the idea that Merriam-Webster is just adding just nilly-willy bullshit into the dictionary, which let me say this, irregardless of what they say, I'm not saying that word. It's not a word. Um, I'm talking about it regardless. Hey, here's the thing I want to share because thank you for being here. Also, first, my fault that there were fewer of you here than there may have been yesterday. I may, I may have had some technical glitches for two shows. So two things. I want to just let you know. If you have been hearing rumor or chat across the intertube and or in the community group about this great conversation that I had with Dom Jones, and then you were looking for where the post is in Smoke and Mirrors. What it is that I fucked up and I posted it to my personal page. So then Smoke and Mirrors page shared it from my personal page. So if you didn't get a chance to see the conversation that happened on Thursday, we got into it and beans got spilt. I think it is one worth watching. I kind of want to watch it a little bit, but I'm also a little bit scared because, as I said, beans did in fact get spilt. And yesterday, one thing is that what I forgot, what I didn't do is to pre-post and do the thing where I let you know, hey, the show's coming at 4:20 today, but I didn't do it, and so only 67 of you saw this. That hurts my soul. I talked to you about missing an audience, and so if I'm doing this and 67 people watch it, that means that we're having fun as a family, and I like that, and that's cool too. But that is no way for you to make me famous and for us together to remember that these were the good times and the way back when. So be remember when you were one of the first, like Dana, you know, and be here and be in the shit. Okay, it's a good place to be. We're all in the cesspool together. My team stays on the shallow end, and that means we get less of it in our mouths. So be so so be on this team. This is a good team to be on. There's less shit in your mouth. Hey, if you one more time did not get a chance to catch the last uh podcast of that is so ineloquently said. I said that so poorly. I make words. The last time I was on the podcast, Myelin and Melanin, which was Saturday and Sábado, you should. You know what? Our good friend Natalie says so. What Natalie says is that episode 81 with Carlos Kareem Wyndham is required listening. Required. Come on. Required. Yes. Sit the fuck down and listen to it. Also, she said, also check out the daily most weekdays at 4:20 and most of the time, okay, fuck you, but that's fair. Live show called Smoke and Mirrors, featuring takes on comedy, culture, and bullshit. Catalyst Kareem Wyndham has curated some pretty incredible conversations to share with us lately. There's a show, what? There's a show page on FB where the live stream posts and are posted to YouTube and the FB page for rewatching later. So do check it out. Please check it out. Have a good time. Join it. Join me. I do try to bring a good variety of guests. And I do try, somebody said I do pretty good interviews, and I like that, I guess, except that I don't really do those. You will know, and I have said this to every one of our guests. There are no, I don't have any questions, or a script, or a plan. We're chatting, and once we start chatting, it's we're all just here under the philosopher's tree. We can, I don't know, maybe we'll talk about what that is or some other shit. So anyway, we're going to talk about whatever we talk about with today somebody who I want to say have known, but that's a lie because it doesn't make sense. I knew, and we'll know again after this. Oh, one more thing that I really did like about Natalie's post. I'm sorry, I'm such, I'm a Goldblum when it comes to life. One more thing that I really liked about this that ended up happening is that on the post later, I thanked them very much for all of these kind words. And what she said to me, and I do know she because she did specify her pronouns. What she said to me is, "Thank you, good sir," and then some other very polite things. And I thought to myself, What the fuck? After everything I've said, and after everything I said on that podcast, in particular about my own gender expression, you called me sir. What just happened? And then I thought, well, I'm gonna talk about this, and I'm gonna make a big old stink. But do you know what happened? This is what happened: is that Natalie, like an hour later, under the very same post said, "Hey, you know what? Sir was maybe kind of gross. I'm gonna go ahead and think about that." And so instead, what I'm gonna do is say, "Hey, Natalie, thank you for saying me. I appreciate that. I appreciate that." All of the folks along the gender spectrum who do recognize that we're in a spectrum and are not attached to the binary do appreciate that and do appreciate that forethought and that thinking. And that is why we, as the meteors, will not crush you. So thank you, Natalie, for doing that. So anyway, before that, what I was saying is the person I'd like to introduce now is somebody who who I did know, and I did know when I did identify quite clearly as a young man, as did they, I believe. And Anyway, here's Michael. Hey, there he is. And
Well,
here's how you know he's here for real.
that's right. I am
What's
here
up?
for real, virtually.
For virtual fucking realness. Look at this is like a horrible, horrible time machine.
What's so bad about it?
that, that I wake up and had this nap of things that happened for like 25 years or so, and woke up right back next to you going, "What the fuck, Mike?
Yeah,
What's
what
going
just
on?
happened?
What's
What
going
just
on?
happened?
What just happened? How
One
you
thing is, I
doing?"
beard, which I'm pretty sure the last time we did spend a lot of, I probably could not have actually grown a beard.
It,
You know,
you know,
now I actually, now I look grown now. So
it's quite natty. It's quite natty. I like it. Very
it,
nice.
it doesn't,
Very
it's a,
nicely done.
you know, we can't
Very
all be as
nicely
good
done.
looking as you, but like,
Stop it. Certainly we cannot. That's
it's true.
goes with no.
Anyway, so yes, we knew each other, and then we missed each other on this coast. And I do, in seeing you, I like all the petty flattery aside, I do feel bad that I lost touch with you. In a way, I follow you on social media. You've always been much better at that than I am, and better than anybody I know. So it's like I'm back to the petty flattery again. It's a weakness of
I'll
mine.
take it.
I'll overcome it. Um, but I do feel bad about it. I do. I'm almost nervous because, like, we were quite close. I consider you a very close friend, and we
Yeah,
did some political shit together that was, is still formative event in my life. That hunger strike we went on back in
absolutely.
college was like real. That
Absolutely.
means a lot to me. It's where I got my start in social movements and thinking
Huh.
about social movements and how they operate and what it means to go on a hunger strike and things like that. And so I feel like I had some really formative moments, not just the political stuff, but the fact that we used to sit in Aaron's apartment and play chess like way too many hours a day for people
Way
who
too
should have
many.
been doing other things.
Should have had
Should have been doing other,
jobs. Should have been.
sexier, more, excited. But like we just love to hang out together and play chess and
Yeah.
argue with each other. And so I do feel bad about that. It is one of my failings. The person is I let relationships dangle and I shouldn't. And seeing you reminds me of why I shouldn't do that.
Oh
But
well. Listen. I'm thrilled to catch up with you. I didn't. I know that when we were both in the Bay, and I do know this from your wife, who is also very, very apt with social media,
yeah,
that we did see each other and we looked at each other with a strange
yeah.
non-recognition,
Like that's
right?
Carl. No, that can't be
That
Carlos.
was at
That's Carl.
like
But
at a
he has
fancy
a
at
kid.
some fancy
And
pants chocolate shop.
yep,
Where was that?
it's on College. It's in
Okay,
Oakland, like North Oakland, on College. Like I think
Bittersweet, right? It's called Bittersweet.
the fact that you remember that is impressive. I think Lee would remember it too. Like, but it was that weird thing. I'm just like that. I know that guy. I know that's Carlos. And it wasn't I know that guy. I'm like, that's Carlos. I'm sure it's Carlos.
Yeah.
But then I didn't have the guts to just go and like hi, would be the white guy who comes up to the black man in public and he'd be like, aren't you my old long friend? Because all black people look alike and all
Uh,
black men with beards look alike and I can't tell the difference. And I'm just like,
uh,
I was A, not going to be that guy. And B was like, and then and then Lee figured it out like on Facebook. And
right,
by that
right,
point,
right.
you were on your way to Portland.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you were
that
like,
was right toward the end of the crash. That was right toward the end of the crash of what had been to that point in my life. But yeah, no, no, no. It was wild to learn that we had been in the Bay
yeah.
together for so long and hadn't connected. It's
So when did you get there? When did you move to Oakland?
oh, I think I moved to Oakland in late 96, early
Okay.
97.
Right. So right when I moved to graduate school, you came to California. I went to the East
Okay.
Coast. You moved out here. Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Where were you at grad school? Where'd you go to grad school?
So I went to Yale. I got a PhD in American Studies from Yale. In And so I lived in New Haven from like '96 to, and then my daughter. I got married. I married a fellow graduate student. Always comes highly recommended. We had our first child as graduate students, and then we
Also
actually had another.
recommended. Also
Also
recommended.
recommended. That like having kids is inconvenient. There's like in this capitalist society, there is no version of having children that is not made inconvenient.
Right.
Hence the gender division of labor and the overrepresentation of men in the industry of academia and teaching and all these other sorts of things.
Bloop,
But
bloop, bloopity bloop.
right, so we have worked this out. But I lived we were in New Haven, and then two kids moved to Durham, North Carolina, where I taught at Duke for 2 years,
Oh wow,
which
okay.
we were on the wrong side of that. I loved Durham. Durham was a
Hmm.
great place. I actually loved North Carolina. No offense to the vegetarians or vegans in your crowd, but they can cook a pig down there like you cannot believe.
Listen,
Sublime.
uh, my brother went to Duke, and I loved Durham, and Durham Raleigh before that.
Yeah, yeah,
That area of the country,
yeah.
um, in
I
terms
love
of
Chapel Hill though. I loved Chapel Hill. Like the
yeah, yeah,
bars
yeah,
sign in Chapel Hill, like and like Southern hipsters are like
yeah,
next level. Like that, there's something like cool people from those
yeah,
towns. I mean, Duke was wild. I was surrounded by all these like Marxists, like deep
yeah, yeah,
Marx
yeah, yeah,
farms, in the Piedmont, weird
yeah.
stuff. But and then yeah, we moved to Berkeley, and you get to rep Oak. I have to rep Berkeley, like so just so we're clear that I'm
Hey,
not,
listen,
not in Oakland. I'm in
B
South
town,
Berkeley.
B
We're in
town, B
Redline,
town.
South Berkeley, but yeah, we moved to Berkeley in 2004.
Okay. Oh, okay, okay. So I think I left. When did I leave? Uh,
Before or after the Oscar Grant riots?
I'm gonna say just before maybe.
January 2009. Before it was, did you move before Obama got elected?
No, 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 no. I was definitely there
I just,
when Obama got elected.
trigger warnings here. I'm a historian, and like actually, chronology matters to me.
Oh yeah, no, it matters very deeply. No, it matters very deeply. Are you kidding me?
Like,
The narrative,
let's figure out the exact date
specificity,
here.
specificity is the narrative of the soul, as you know, right? So, no, no, no. I was there 2000, 2008. I was there 2009. It was 2010 that it was a series of things. So my son died, was born and died the same evening. It was not a good night. It wasn't a good night. The
Awesome.
following year, almost to the day, early by about 14 days, 15 days, my second child was born, living and breathing, which was very, very exciting. Uh,
Yes.
very exciting. And I, in defiance, and we in defiance of everything that every therapist and logical person had said, decided, yeah, no, we're going to fight this out and we're going to make it work and it's going to be fine. And it was not. And so we stopped it. And that was when then I left the Bay. I went back for a quick regroup and mom and dad's house, as you do when you are newly divorced. And then because my daughter and her mom had moved here, that brought me here.
Sure.
And because the thing is, it is while there is a healthy, do not believe the bullshit, healthy black populace in Portland, uh, very, 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 very few of us moved here. Very many of us ended up here,
Hmm.
and I am one of those.
That you end.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I ended up out here. I'm like, okay,
Well,
well,
I know better than to think that Portland is this monochromic space. I mean, but it also, Oregon has this fascinating history, this racial history to Oregon, and
oh
it's got
yeah,
that deep divide between in a way that Colorado did not. It was, I mean, it does, but not to the same extent. These cities that are liberal, and then the hinterlands that
yeah.
are, in the case of Oregon, like fascistic, cult.
Well, I mean, here's the thing though, right? Because if we look at the history of where we're both from, right? Looking at
Yeah,
Colorado, and then we look at a place like Cherry Creek, for instance, right?
right.
And we know one that it was first indigenous land, then it
Sure.
was the thriving black population, very much like Tulsa, very
Mhm.
much like Rosewood, and met very much the same outcome.
Mhm.
White folks had a little fire party, and then
The Chinese Americans too, like in 1880, the citizens of
the
Denver burned Chinatown to the ground. That's why there's no Chinatown in Denver. Like they burned it out
yeah,
like in what amounted to a drug raid. They went
right,
after,
right, right.
they're looking for opium dens that were luring white women into this, white people don't need much more than their own paranoid fever dreams to just start engaging in violence, looting and
Oh,
mayhem.
not at all, not at all. All I'm suggesting is the white people of Colorado had a clear and designated plan to do the good liberal thing, as you just talked about, which is to you bury that history.
Oh
You just
yeah,
you just
under shopping
bury
malls,
that. Yeah,
under
under a
malls,
shopping mall.
subdivisions.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, where rich white people in.
sprawling sprawl.
Oh my God, and it is lovely. If you need Colorado gear, let me tell you something. Cherry Creek Mall. If you don't have Colorado gear, go
Uh,
there. You can get some good
so,
shit.
like, my wife is a New Yorker, right? I
Yeah,
am
yeah, yeah,
proud.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she grew up in Manhattan, and like the first time I took her to visit my parents and to go to Colorado, like as we were driving back to the airport, I'm like, so what did you think? And it was very nervous for all sorts of reasons, right? But oh, what did she think? And she's like, it's beautiful. The mountains are gorgeous. I mean, I drove her up into the mountains. We did like I was not going to let
That's the only
like
thing. Listen, if you're
part
bringing
go
someone to
away.
Colorado to look at it, right, and to convince them that it's okay,
But like
you're
my
going
parents,
in the mountains. You're going in the mountains.
yeah. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
But like we were in the burbs, right? Like my parents,
Okay.
I grew up in the burbs, right?
Right,
Very
right, right, right.
segregated landscape. And so,
Wait,
she
wait. So
basically,
wait, wait. Where was that? Where was that?
I grew up in
Yeah.
Englewood,
Oh, I know exactly where
South
that is.
South Denver. Yeah. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my parents' house was built in 1947. It's a classic outer ring suburb, right? But I grew up on the last set of straight streets, and everything
Uh-huh.
south in the next rim were the cul-de-sac waving,
Yep.
plot by
Yeah, yeah.
plot
With those,
subdivision.
with the trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know
So
where.
like
Yeah,
to
I know where you
simplify
were.
my middle class status, that I grew up on a straight street, where the upper middle class kids that I went to high school with lived
We're on the
on,
curvy streets. We're on the. They had
yeah,
the cool streets.
cul-de-sacs and shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's just the geography of suburbia, but Denver really had it, down pat.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Same in Boulder. Okay, so you brought her out there.
oh yeah, and she's just like, oh, but this I mean, it's pretty. The mountains are great, but it's just one strip mall after another. And the initial reflex would just be like, ugh, ow, no, come on,
It
I took
stings.
you to, I took you to Glenwood Springs, and we were
Yeah.
that, but she's right,
Yeah.
and because
I took you to
and I know,
Eldo. Come on, I took you to the El Dorado Springs. Okay, it's beautiful. Look at it. Just
yeah,
don't,
but it's just
once we get
one,
down.
yeah, it's totally indistinguishable. Like it's
Yeah.
impossible to tell one neighborhood. And the way I know that this is true is because every time I do go back, I don't recognize anything. All the spaces and places that I grew up in and around, just are they've been plowed under, in part because they were never really permanent to begin with.
No, oh
They were
no. Yeah.
shopping malls are disposable architecture. Suburban housing, by and large, is disposable architecture.
Right.
So
Right.
and it just gets plowed under, and new crops get planted, and they.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, it's wild.
I rebelled against suburbia. I suppose you were part of that, even though you're from Boulder. Like, I think it is a point of pride that I knew two black native Boulderites, you and Jet, and you were like
Oh,
my
okay.
friends, and
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. Yeah,
so
no,
Boulder.
I think there were only about 15 to 20 of us. So to know two of us says a lot.
A knowable percentage. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah. No, I have been back to campus. I went with my son and my
Uh-huh.
mom recently, and my family they're such boosters. They used to go to football games. My entire family graduated from the University of Colorado Boulder.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, mine too. Mine too. I'm legacy.
real.
You know what it is. You know what it, yeah, no, my father, my uncle, myself, Yusef didn't graduate, but he went there I think he was there for 2 years. He might have graduated from that. I don't remember if that's where he completed his undergrad. I know he did a couple of years there. He started at Princeton, bounced over to Boulder for some period of time. I don't know, but I know that that was the period at which once he got to CU Boulder, like the distillation of any kind of idea that somehow better things are happening at the Ivy League where all the super smarties are, and somehow at the state school it's just going to be full of dummies. So he was just going to get in there and smoke everybody, and it was just going to be like, oh, this is whatever fucking cakewalk bullshit kind of school. And he got in there, and he looked at me, and after like one semester, he was like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry.
This is
Um,
harder than I thought it was going to be.
this is hard."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, motherfucker, college is college. And he, why don't you act right? Act right."
No, all those are true. I think, yeah, all those things are true. I mean, it was an interesting campus to. It was odd because I had a cluster of friends who were students like yourself and Pierre and
Mm,
Aaron and
mm,
others,
mm, mm.
and then I knew all these other people who had graduated or were graduate students,
Mm-hmm,
and so I
mm-hmm.
had two kind of very and Jet was in the non-student
Right.
world, and and but at the same time, like academically, at least Colorado, it was rigorous. I met incredibly brilliant people there. Like I ended up at graduate school with a number of those same people. Like
Mm-hmm,
three of us,
mm-hmm.
from CU Boulder that ended up in the same program at Yale, American Studies at Yale, right? So, but at the same time, like let's just be real. There's a lot of education just wasted on young people. There's
Oh,
like a lot, like a lot, and so in a sense, there were a lot of smart people, and to do well, you had to work hard. But there's also just,
yeah,
a knowable percentage of the class of students are really just there to drink beer and ski,
yeah, yeah.
and they're not really putting it. So it was a way to rise to people's attention. I got great at, I made all these great relationships with faculty because they really weren't. The classrooms are packed, but a very small number of students are really there to read and learn. And like Manning Marable taught there while we were
Yep.
students.
Should
Manning
it,
Marable was there.
I learned from
Right.
Manning.
Manning
Yes.
Marable was there. Evelyn
Yep.
Hudahart, Like I mean, she runs
She
the
was one
Center
of
of
my
Gravity.
mentors running the thing. Yep.
Exactly. And then, like, I mean, this might not strike the same, but Stan Brakhage, the fucking god of American avant-garde film, was not only taught there, but would sit in these weird spaces on campus and paint on movies. Bizarre. You could smell him from a distance because it would just give off these fucking vapors, right? I mean, it was a wild place, right?
Yeah, it was wild.
It was
wild.
It's I suffered moving to the East Coast. I will tell you that. Did not make me happy.
No.
Have you ever lived on the East Coast?
I've not lived. No, I'd been on the East Coast. The longest I've been on the East Coast is 3 months, I think. So I can't say that I lived there. I was there. I was there for a very volatile summer, summer of '89. So I was there the summer that Do the Right Thing dropped.
Right.
And in fact, there was nearly a fist fight in the theater that night.
Oh, good times.
Yeah, over the seat. Yeah. Over the seat.
I saw it in Colorado, but I still had to walk through a metal detector to get into the theater.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, no, not quite like that. You know, some dude just tried to gaffle a seat.
Jesus.
That's cool. Some dude tried to gaffle a seat, and then the whole theater just screamed at the dude, "Do the right thing!" And it just sort of,
devolved.
Motherfucker just moved, and it was, it was fun. So how did you end up a professor of Black Studies, which I guess is currently wearing the dress of African American Studies, which I guess is good. She looks good. She looks good, girl. She does look a little like 1987. I want to say that too. Just the sash. It's the sash and the shoulder pads. The content is the same. We're not here to talk about the rapping. We're here to talk about the candy. How did you?
Well, look, I mean, like all of that is in contention right now, right? You know, the New York Times agreed to capitalize the B in black, and this is a kind of new standard. And so these terms, the nomenclature is constantly changing and shifting, right? So that's part of reveals to us the instability of racial categories to begin with. The fact that we can't really agree on what we call these distinctions and how finally we gradiate them and like who's included in what group. And, I do this thing with my students where I ask them to give me the names of dead races, right? Of like racial categories that no longer exist, right? But and that half of them end up being like kind of white racial slurs. But, Mongoloid.
I was going to say, that was the first one that came to my head. That was the first one that came to my head, motherfucker. Oh, my God. Mongoloid was the first shit that came to my head when you said that.
So like, these kinds of, so in that sense, now I will say in the defense of the department that they are the Department of African American Studies, but on a graduate level, they're the Department of African Diaspora Studies. So African diasporic studies is a much broader field, and we have all kinds of have Africanists and Caribbeanists and Latin Americanists and a bunch of others that work in that field. Now, my own part, I have a joint appointment, so half my line is in African American studies, the other is in American studies, but every race is central to everything that I do, and the issue is that on a very basic, you can't study the history and culture of the United States without putting the question of race, and particularly Black people, at the center of that story, right? There's just no honorable way to talk about American history that doesn't, think about the ways in which every aspect of, from the authorship of the Constitution, the mode of governance, to where we live and why, how our political parties are arranged, to the wars we fight, to the nature of our empire, is grounded in categorizations and classifications of race that are always shifting, that are never, grounded in any kind of biological or cultural reality. But yet, what we have is, if we tell that story, then we have to start thinking, okay, what is race? Where does this idea come from? Why is this so important to us? Why do we structure our society around these things? And so the problem is that question gets asked in a university setting. Typically it didn't get asked until the 1960s kind of explosion. And you had Black and brown academics and Asian American academics and others that went farther back than that. And that legacy is hugely important. But in the 1960s and 70s, you get women and gender studies departments, African American studies departments, ethnic studies departments, right? And you get we think of the studies, which is the things
Right.
that are critical of the United States and its history. And so
Right.
typically the study of race gets done in those spaces, those intellectual academic corridors, right? Because they're not going to talk about that in physics. They don't talk about it in philosophy, although they should.
Right.
Right. I mean, Immanuel Kant wrote treatises about racial differences. And, anthropology actually really does talk about race. All the anthropologists I know are obsessed
Yeah,
with
no,
race.
on that point, right? Like I do the same sort of exploration with a lot of the folks who end up in my workshops,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
we look at the philosophical roots, right?
Hmm.
And the choice to follow Aristotelian philosophy to get us to the point of having the categorizations and building universities on that sort of philosophy rather than Kardakian, so that we end up in a position where we are now believing that there are hierarchies by necessity must be slaves, right? And P.S. that the earth is at the center of the universe.
Right, right,
So really, right, if we're following these philosophical trains, then that
right.
means you have to, by definition, define yourself as a flat earther and a earth universal centralist.
Okay, so I mean, I think that's dead on. But the question then becomes, if that's the case, why can't we get beyond the racial question, right? Why
Right.
haven't we progressed out of it, right?
Oh yeah,
Let's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's in many ways a more interesting question, right? Because it calls into question all our ideas of progress itself. Like, what is progress, right? I mean, we tend to think today we think of progress is that next year's iPhone is going to be better than this year's iPhone, and that's progress, right? That's all
Mm.
that progress really means to us, right? Is that yeah, planned obsolescence within capitalism, right?
Right,
But we
right,
also
right,
tend to
right.
think that, like, right, our knowledge accumulates. And if our knowledge accumulated, this is your point, is that if our knowledge continued to accumulate, then why can't we just see that there's
Yeah.
one race, we all share a common heritage and DNA, and we all share a single fate,
Yeah.
despite our myriad superficial diversity. So why?
Yeah.
Why does it persist?
Yeah, I mean, and that's it, right? Because the part of the idea for me is that when we look at this post-structural time that we're in, the other idea is that there is no history, right? Because history ends up letting us do this false displacement of identity and of ideas, and start doing this ahistorical analysis that says, well, I didn't own slaves, so it doesn't have anything to do with me. And well, that was so long ago, and because we put it in this idea of there being such a thing as history, and this false, again, linear idea of how that would demarcate. That
Right,
means that what we're doing is we're really talking about like these different planets that shit happened on, like
right.
some fucking DC comic. And like, well, in the planet of the 1800s, there was lots of fucking slavery and shit. And sure, in the planet of 1901, there was a lynching rash that happened during an pandemic. But the fact that there's a lynching rash happening now during a
Well,
pandemic,
now, yeah,
that's a separate issue. And so, I'm often saying to folks, like, and that wasn't even the example that I had to give because we were still in rooms together. So I was talking about kids in cages and
right,
saying, we're sitting here having our lovely fucking cappuccinos,
right.
talking about the poor children at the cages. You don't remember 19, and nothing about 1942 is ringing any bells for anybody at all. This is just what the fuck ever. This is what the
Yeah.
fuck ever. So yeah, no, there is no history. This is it. This is it.
Well, the way I think of it is this is the Marxist in me, but that history doesn't pass; it accumulates,
Yeah.
right? It piles up.
Right.
It
Right. 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 Right.
generates these layers on layers on layers, which is often why it's so hard to do anything because there's so much meaning in layers just piled up, and to create something that feels new is really is always up for dispute. Like, is it new? Is it not? I mean, this moment I think is unequivocal. I mean, like, this historical conjuncture, this moment in time
Right. 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 Right.
is new in a world historical fashion.
Oh yeah.
And and should it surprise us that the great crisis of global capitalism and life itself is one rooted in race? right?
Yeah.
Our understandings and categories and the way we've built our society around racial difference and racial strife.
Right.
I mean, that's the short my short answer to the question, why does racism persist,
Right. Right.
is
Right.
capitalism. Capitalism needs it. It's built out of it. I mean, the Columbus both inaugurates Atlantic capitalism and the kind of modern categorization and classification of race. And it begins there. Racial capitalism begins there, and we are living in its wake, right?
Yeah.
And if we're going to get rid of racism, we have to get rid of capitalism. We're going to get rid of capitalism, we have to get rid of racism.
Yep.
Small task lying before the human race.
Yeah. No. One of my favorite questions to ask people is like, when were white people invented and why?
Right.
And
What is
and,
that?
people just
I
sit
mean,
there
what do they
like,
say?
what are you talking about? Invented? What the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, no, no. Oh, you have documentation of somebody calling themselves white before
First white man.
1628?
Show me the first white man. Where's the first white
Yeah,
man?
because I can show you who wrote that they were the first white man, but I can also show you that there's no documentation of there ever having been a white man before the fucking uprisings in goddamn Virginia. I promise you that, sweetheart.
Well, I mean, and then but there are all these other versions that lead up to that. I mean, right? You could
Oh yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
moment
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Columbus kidnapped an Indian,
Yeah,
right?
that
Or the state of
disaggregation.
Las Casas have their debate, as Sylvia Wynter writes
Yeah,
about, that it's like, okay, now we have this distinction between the civilized and the savage. And I mean, in a certain sense,
bring it,
that's what we're still doing, right?
bring it.
And this is why white people come out of their palatial mansions in St. Louis, heavily armed, pointing their guns at, black folks protesting the murder of black people. This sense, there it is, like the whole mess of racial capitalism and Western civilization, colonialism, all of that, just like
Yeah.
in one perfect tweet.
Oh, that down to his goddamn outfit. I'm just like,
The
holy
belt,
shit,
the
bruh.
belt, right? Like, and
Belts, belts. Who the fuck wears
belt.
belts?
That's today's sponsor. Yes,
I
I'll
don't.
come up
I
with a triangle reference shortly.
listen. I can't trust a white man in a belt. How about that? How
No
about
belt,
that?
no belt today. I'm like,
Nay, no, never, 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 ever, never, ever, never, ever. We
I
left belts.
ordinarily I wear them, but I think somehow I knew this was going to happen.
Oh no, 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 honey, you can't wear belts. We left belts in that in Ally McBeal's cast
I
wore
didn't know that
belts.
you were such a committed to this anti-belt position.
I listen.
Where did
Here's
that
the
come from?
thing:
How
is
do
that
you?
I'm a
I mean, first of all, how do you
sartorialist.
keep your pants up or your hips just?
You wear you wear pants that are the right size, and you don't bullshit or lie to yourself, and so they're there. And if if you have a little tum, what that
Yeah.
means is your tum is going to be over your pants, or you're going to wear your pants like it's 1976, right? If you're going beltless and you maybe look a bit 2 months pregnant
But you don't mind
because
a
of COVID.
high-waisted jean? You're not opposed to that if it's
I go low. I go low. I go low.
if
I
it's
don't
just
go high. Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, it's the same as when I see a troll fucking around with one of my friends. I always go low. Never go high.
You do.
Never go high.
Can we
Go
talk
get them.
about how often you get kicked off of Twitter? Like,
Twitter's not bad. I actually don't get kicked
like
off of Twitter
Facebook,
too much.
you're banned from Facebook.
Facebook, I get the fuck off. Facebook,
Never on Facebook, so I don't know. What do you have to do to get kicked off Facebook?
oh, there
Clearly,
are a
being a
couple of,
Nazi will not get you the boot.
that's not the one. No, no. To be clear, let's see, how do I translate the things I've said? Because I don't want this to be the reason that we don't get to do these. Um,
Oh,
there
Google
is
them.
no, 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 no. There's a hashtag that I am fond of when being satirical in referring to the patriarchy by keeping the designation of those who are the primary beneficiaries of it and referring to them as rubbish. In the event that I have done that, Zuckerberg's people don't like that. Recently, they also are not so keen on if I say a thing like white men are trash. and
Mm,
put that in a post,
hmm.
that seems to, in their minds, no, I didn't even say that. Do you know what I said?
Wait,
Because
didn't you
it was
say
in
men are
response to a
trash?
black thing. No,
Like
because it was in
men
response
are
to
trash is okay,
something.
but white men are trash is not.
No,
They're both not acceptable.
both not acceptable.
Okay.
And in fact, I had said something about some brother who did a thing. Oh, it was Judge Joe. Judge Joe was said some sexist fucked up shit that was like surprisingly wildly sexist, not because of his age or his gender, but because of his TV persona and his history as a real judge. And so I said the thing, and then they said the thing, which is usually a note that says you are not allowed for 30 days. And so that meant that I was out of Facebook land about 120 days, give or take, last year. So I'm trying to be better. I have found that if I'm just chit chatting about it and I say the same things, eh, but they don't like it written. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah. No, I've I've listen, as you know, right from the time of when we were in, and this predated that time. But when we were at CU, as you know, both by agitators and folks who are uh, more connected to official means than agitators,
Mm,
I was a bit targeted. That
yeah.
that that happened the
Well,
first
you
time
were
that
just a straight
happened.
up leader. You were one of the leaders. Like I was an
Well, okay,
agitator. I give
yeah,
you
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I was an
yeah.
agitator. You were a leader.
Yeah, well, it was the outside agitators who were trying to stop what we were doing, right?
Oh, those people, the
Yeah,
bad ones.
there was a day that like my face suddenly was postered all over campus
Mm.
over Khalid Muhammad's face because some student group was bringing him to the school and it said it just had the two of us over and said, "What are you gonna do about him?" And there were like 900 of them all over school.
I feel like I remember that.
Yeah,
Who
yeah,
were
yeah,
they?
Robert.
Was
I
put that up?
no,
No, no, no. Yeah.
they didn't claim. Nobody ever claimed any responsibility,
Well, I
right?
mean, the thing I, as uncomfortable as that is, and like think about what that means. Like as posting, they're literally photocopying. This is
Oh
what
yeah,
politics in the '90s was: printing out photo, and
yeah.
sticking it to lampposts and stuff.
At night,
Um,
at late night,
at
at
night.
late. You could because you couldn't do that shit in the day.
No,
That's a
no.
2 a.m. trip. That's a 2 a.m. trip to do that one.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
funny. But I think the thing is, like, if you're not actually garnering some like direct opposition, you're not really doing anything. you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
or what
yeah,
you're doing isn't sufficiently sustained, right? Because
yeah.
that's what we're seeing now. Like the George Floyd protests were so massive and have lasted, continued for so long that the at this point though the far right are kind of getting their act together
Yeah.
and they're rallying their troops and Trump has given his big speech and made some like the National Garden of American Heroes or whatever like bullshit. I mean, just admit it. He wants to build a park for us to put the Confederate statues and Columbus statues we're tearing down now,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
You know,
You know what his presidential library is going to be. If he's not in prison, his presidential library, you're going to walk in, there's going to be a big giant screen with like Beverly Hillbillies just on a loop, right? There's going to be another room. Yeah, as you walk in, you'll hear the theme song for Dukes of Hazzard, and Ted Nugent will be the narrator as you walk through this mausoleum of failed white supremacists through history. Uh,
yeah.
it's going to be
No,
gross.
well, I like to, I don't actually think that the Dems have the stomach or the guts to actually try Donald Trump for his crimes. They should. They absolutely
They
should.
should.
They didn't go after W. They didn't go after any of the people that fucked us in 2008, like the financial crisis. They don't have the guts for that. They don't have the
I can't
stomach for
even.
it.
They fucking let there be a peaceful coup d'état over goddamn ballots. Like he
Yeah,
just folded like a goddamn deck of cards. Like our
yeah.
team
Suck.
sucks.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Anyway,
No, I'm actually teaching a class this fall. If you can consider Zooming with 200 lonely and horny undergraduates, teaching.
they're jacking off so much, not paying attention to you. What are you trying to teach them though?
So I'm teaching. I'm doing a class on the election. Like it's just called Election 2020, and I'm co-teaching with somebody who's like a social movement organizer, and like we're just doing like basic political education for 200. Well, I mean, theoretically, it could be for an infinite number of undergraduates if they do indeed decide to show up this fall.
All right.
Do you have any advice for me to turning myself into a online YouTube star?
No. Do you have any for me? Shit.
No.
Let me know. What the fuck? I'd love to be an online star.
Pierre and I have the thing for the stage. I mean, you do too, though. You perform.
Oh, yeah.
We all do. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, you're doing this because you can't tell jokes in front of paying customers.
This was born out of desperation. This was born out of desperation. My band is still trying to do music right now.
Yeah.
I'm still doing this bullshit.
True.
I'm in the same situation as you. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
No. Just to be honest, my friend, we're not. I'm getting paid. I have a job. Right.
Well, yeah.
The future of higher education is very precarious at this moment. And it is scary out there. There are colleges and universities that will not survive this, large numbers of them. Berkeley, the University of California, Berkeley will not be one of them, but we may shrink considerably.
Colleges out here, we are the test ground, and I promise you, small colleges will not survive. We've lost 3. And that was last year prior to the bullshit. Do you know what I'm saying? And when we lose these colleges, let me let you know this too, they are fucking the students. They are fucking the proletariat.
Yeah.
They leave these kids ass out. Out. You paid your money? Fuck you, we're out.
The food service workers, the maintenance staff, the technical workers, the secretaries, all the administrative staff, not the upper level administrators. They're going to get their golden parachutes and move to some other.
No, fuck Regents. Fuck them. Yeah,
but
we know who we're talking about.
100%. So it's. I mean, but then beyond that, it's also college towns, right?
Right.
So these really the places that people want to live, right? Where universities are anchored, because universities bring speakers, music, theater, movie series. They bring all kinds of things to a community, right?
I'm just going to say a thing. I don't know if people want to live there. I know you and I do. You and I do. People who like Ira Glass, people who like books, people who like albums, nerds like college towns.
Fair enough.
People who might play chess, instead of trying to procure relationships. Those kinds of people, Michael, like those towns. I am one of these people.
I know, it's guilty as charged. Right?
But what you said about them is great. I love all that shit.
It's not a political economy podcast, but it is an issue for rural America. There, think about all these big colleges in small towns. This country is if higher education does it, this country is going to suffer. I mean, this is it's a terrifying. So let's talk about something else.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about this. My day job is very, very secure, and maybe I'll be teaching your classes for you for free, because they're going to make me a scab. These bastards. No, they're not. I won't let it happen. I'll never let it happen. I love you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I love you.
They'll let you, they may let you scab over the community college.
They'll try. These motherfuckers. No, they really, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's really gross. The way that they, because the thing is, you look at somebody like myself or any other kind of proletariat academic, and there aren't that many, right?
Yeah.
Folks who actually, because it's hard. It's elitist. It's bullshit,
incredibly.
Right? You have to, the level of research that goes into knowing
Wait, so what?
what the
I'm sorry.
talk to me.
I'm really so. But let me just what your day job? Like, which one are you referring to? I acted like I knew what you're talking about. Like, can
It
we
just
be?
happened. It's just the thing that happens in the day. During the day, people hire me to make words at them about
Yeah.
race, and they call it, depending on what they need, a workshop, a training,
But you
consulting.
work for some institution. You're not, or are you just doing this on an ad hoc?
No, no,
Like you
no,
do.
no, 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 no. I have no. I don't do day job situation. No,
No,
I'm free. I am free. I
outstanding.
did that. I was good at it. I brought.
I believe that.
Yeah,
Not
no,
the,
no.
the consulting thing. I bet you're amazing at that.
Yeah, the day job I sucked at mostly because I don't like being anyone's boss. I'm like, okay, if we're on the team, you should be good enough to just be on the team. Just do the shit.
Right.
There you go. And that's not people don't consider that what they call professional development. I learned that. Also, a
Right.
lot of folks think it'd be great and a lot of fun to have a comedian and a prankster in the office. And it turns out it's no fun to have that person also be your boss and actually be funny because then they're very distracting, it seems, sometimes. Like when people are saying stupid shit. And it's hard for me. And my face also, here's another thing I learned since doing it this way, because you're right, I've been on stage and in front of people and I'm dying. That my face dances. I didn't know that because, right, there was not video of what the fuck I do.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I just talk. And then I saw what I look like and I was like, oh shit, no, it's a whole, you know, so, yeah, no, I don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing any of it. I'm doing the same thing that I think I'm having a mental
Sounds like you
collapse.
do. It sounds like you do.
All right, well, you know what? If it turns out good, I'm going to say I did. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that if I land on my feet after we're done with all this bullshit, it's going to be good. But no,
Wait,
and
when
then I
does this
try
end?
and say one
When
more
does
time.
this is going to end?
Listen, I'm talking about like 15, 20, 30 years from now
Oh,
when we're in our pods to deal with the climate outside. And we're way past the idea of having like a cloth mask. Like, what the fuck? The cloth mask? What do you breathe? So what? You just breathe acid? Is that what you do? Stupid.
right. Through
Put
a
your
piece of
helmet on.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm tired of these motherfuckers. I'm like, you know what? You don't want to wear a mask? Fuck you. Don't wear a mask. Do me a favor. Don't wear a mask. Open a kissing booth. Get it going. Let's get this going. Let's get this over.
I
Let's get
can't
this
agree
over.
with you. I
Fuck
don't
you.
agree with you on that one. I mean, I think that's what we are doing. I don't agree with you on that one because, like, I mean, you've called me a nerd several times. So I might as well lean into
Bring
it.
it, bring it, bring it,
But
bring
like,
it, bring it.
you know, the biggest rate of transmission is when if you have the disease and are not wearing a mask.
I
Even
know.
if you're healthy and wearing a mask, it barely protects you.
It's like
You still
2%. I know. It's
I
bullshit.
know
It
it's
doesn't do
like it
anything.
protects you, but it protects you enough to be worth wearing. But
Yeah.
like the whole thing is, you have to assume yourself to be the sick one, and I think
Yeah.
white people are pathological enough. Some white people, many, like millions of white people.
White culture definitely is. White culture is definitely that fucked up, right? Because we're talking about different things when you say that. And I just want to make that distinction
So what
because
do you?
I
Yeah,
because I don't want to hear this is why. Because I don't want to hear a lot of bullshit in the comments and I don't want a lot of motherfuckers trying to come at you or come at me and it's nonsense, right? So when you're saying white people,
yeah,
want to be very clear, we are talking about people who appear to be and will fill out on the census the word
yeah.
white. We are
Identify.
now, right. Now, when we say white culture, what we are talking about is a culture of white supremacy that teaches these people from third grade that they are the bestest, most specialist, strongest people in the world, and that nothing can hurt them, and that's why they don't have to wear a mask. And you're an
No,
asshole if you
I
do.
get you. Like, so I mean, yeah, I hear that. Like, I think of I think that there are white people, right? And then I don't think of white culture so much as I think of whiteness, right? There's
The
whiteness, which is
history of
always putting
whiteness,
itself
yes, for
around,
sure.
and then there's white supremacy, in
Right.
part because the question remains open as to whether whiteness can survive white supremacy. I believe that there will be, after white supremacy, there will still be white people, right? There will
You
be
think the
people who,
designation carries on? You think the designation carries on after like 2042? There's going to be white people?
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of up to us, right? That is,
Okay, okay.
part of it is that there's no other, at this point, readily available term.
True,
Right, there's
true,
no other, like,
true.
African American, blackness, Negro, words I won't
Right,
say, there are all of these other, Asian, Oriental,
right.
Korean, like there are all these available terms. Whiteness has a lot. Now, on the one hand, there are all these white racial slurs that tend
Yeah,
to
I was going to
have
say like
very little
cracker.
valence.
You could be crackers. You could
Right.
be colonizers. You could
Right.
be
Au phase, yeah, we're gonna go back
au
to being
fait. I mean, I
exactly.
think gray boy. I think that's about it. There's not much,
So maybe there
There,
are readily available, maybe there are lots of readily available terms that we will then regress back to. I mean, like, I think that, in a certain sense, that's kind of what I sort of try to argue. One of these things I wrote about, the douchebag is a white
right? Is
racial
that the
slur.
one?
Trying to argue that, like, the idea that, like, the term douchebag is a white racial slur that actually targets wealthy white men who insist on their privilege, right?
Right.
So the rich white man that insists on their privilege is the douchebag. And that's not me reinventing the term. That's me just sort of articulating its existing common sense understanding,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
So, like,
Now,
the one that insists, or as we think of it, and I relate it to the actual feminine hygiene product. I did all of this detailed research in, like,
okay,
nursing
because
journals, things like that,
girl,
to actually think.
that's what I was about to ask you. You know that's what I was about to ask
I
you, and
think
you saw
this,
my face, right?
yeah, like,
You saw my
where the
face. Go ahead.
douchebag from, like, and the whole lineage of, like, how it came to be an insult and the way it works its way through popular culture and the various extant definitions of it that operate, and then I offer my own
Go.
sort of, kind of intervention, saying that this is what it means, because the douchebag is the useless sexist tool, right?
Right.
In the sense that, like, nursing magazines in 1910 were telling women that this is a dangerous and unnecessary form of sexual hygiene.
Mm.
It became used as such, and we're getting gynecological, but because it worked in
1910. Wasn't there a virus or some such also happening in 1910? Shit, cycles. Keep going.
yeah, no, it's just no, it's so there is this linkage, and then, so there are, these white men, and I should say, then there are non-white people that aspire to douchebaggery, like that kid Aaron. I've forgotten he's a horrible person. I shouldn't even invoke his name. But this young man who murdered all these women in Santa Barbara several
Oh,
years ago,
yeah, yeah,
who
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
claiming it is his right that these women belong to him, and because they, this kind of incel terrorist, right, that has been enshrined
Right.
in the alt-right. I mean, so the douchebag is on a comedic character if you're watching New Girl, but it's also a murderous, dangerous, vengeful young
Mm,
man, on
mm,
the other.
mm,
So there's a
mm,
kind of
mm,
the sense
mm.
in which whiteness, I think, in this era is shattering, because there are millions. I mean, I've been at all these marches, and not
Hmm.
all of them, obviously. There have been hundreds, tens of thousands of them, right, in every fucking state. I've been at a good number of them in Berkeley and Oakland and in other places. And, there are a lot of white people trying to learn. They're not just
Yeah.
out there, like, because they feel like they should be, but they're trying to learn, right?
Right.
There's a lot of teaching and pedagogy going on there, and the gesture of solidarity is real.
Mm.
And, this is why this is such an opening. There's such an
Yeah.
opening.
Yeah.
I think
I think it's a good moment. I do. I get scared. I'm going to be honest with you, and
what are you
it
most
touches
afraid
on some. Well, here's the thing, right? Because yes, there is a great deal of learning happening in this moment, and
Yeah.
it matters deeply. Now, my thing that is the scab, that is the picadella for me, is this situation that while certainly white folks are picking up some literature, and they are picking up literature that is scholarship. They're not picking up nonsense, right? If we look at that New York Times top 10 list, if we look at the Amazon top 10 list, you will see race titles. Yet, on every one of these, we are seeing this bullshit ass idea and theory around white fragility that's been being pumped up,
No,
right?
that's not the move.
No,
And
no,
I would
right.
I would very much
Talk
prefer
to it.
people
Talk
read
to it.
other books. What would you tell people to read? Like
Oh,
top.
there's so much. I think.
I know
I think.
there.
I think we could go to James Baldwin, The Fire next time. I mean, let's be honest, because these
Yeah,
motherfuckers haven't read it.
no, really.
Um, I'm saying if we want to get into it, before we even really get into the shit about race, let's read Settlers. Don't even let. We'll talk about
That one,
race
okay.
deeply in a minute. But if we're really going to start getting into some bullshit, then
I'm in
let's
my.
go back to Duke University. There it is. There
There
it
it is.
is. And if we're going to do that bullshit, let's bring it back to Duke. You know what I'm saying? You want to talk Duke? Let's bring it back to Duke. Let's talk about Bonilla Silva. Let's get into the
Oh,
books,
that's
right?
in my
Let's
office.
get into
That's
the
my
shit.
office.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Let's get into the shit. Let's get into some critical race theory. You want to talk the shit? Let's talk the shit. But and if you've got to, because it is just so important that you need a biographical narrative to bring you into the shit. Then to me, what I would suggest is avoid anything written by a black man or male presenting person in this moment. Hold your horses, especially if you're looking for something contemporary. Alicia Garza's book is about to come out. I
About to
would
come out.
wait for that.
Yeah.
That shit is going to be
It's too
phenomenal.
late for me to
I would look
teach.
at I would look at Angela's new book. I would look at Auntie Angela's new book, The Collection of the Speeches,
Hmm.
and I would ask them to look at what else is one I've been. Oh, you know what? I just put it up. I don't have it right at my fingertips, so I'm gonna fuck up the title. I'm not gonna say it right. Oh shit. Now I'm gonna sound like an asshole, but I'm gonna say these words because you're
Okay,
gonna
I
know what
put
I'm
you on the
talking about.
spot. Go ahead.
It's
The advantage of being surrounded by books, and I could
I
just
know. Well,
like this is
yeah, I just can't move
mine.
because I
This is
gotta
my
get
number
off the.
one
Fuck it.
choice.
You sit there. You're on camera. You sit there.
Okay. Any
Uh,
67 people who are watching.
where's the
Yes,
shit? I
this book,
got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. I
W. Du
got it.
Bois, Black Reconstruction in America. This is the single most important work of history written about the United States. It was written in 1935. It's big. It's big, but it's not as big as that Grant biography that you haven't read, and it's certainly not as big as that Hamilton book that you haven't read. So
Yeah, right.
those are my
That
choices.
that Hamilton book that people haven't read is actually, I'm gonna say it, it's very, very fucking good. Although everything you need to know about the slavery shit is in the first like 60 pages. So fucking just get the
Really,
PDF.
that's it.
It's
I can just read the first 60 pages.
Honestly, if you get through the first
Carlos,
60
you
to
just
100
saved me.
pages,
I'm
you're good.
embarrassed to admit that I haven't read any of those.
Oh
I and
yeah, I read the whole fucking thing. It's
well, let's
not
not talk. This is my other
captivating.
choice very quickly. Like, and then
Oh,
this is
show
my
me,
other
show me,
choice.
show me.
This
You
is
go, you
The
go, you
Broken
go.
Heart of America, Walter Johnson.
Bring it.
The lighting is bad. The Broken Heart of America by Walter Johnson. It's St. Louis and the Violent History of the United States.
Brilliant.
It is the book, the one volume history of the United States that we kind of need right now. That fuses imperial expansion to anti-blackness in a history of the city of St. Louis. So it really starts with and ends with Michael Brown, and it's
Absolutely brilliant.
profound. It's profound. It really blew me away.
I
So,
love it. I love
anyways,
it.
what have you got there?
Last suggestion for me is from Akala, and that is Akala's Natives. This is a great book to connect if you need a narrative. The history of anti-blackness in specific in London. This is about the generation, the lost generation, as it were called, and the history of that. So captivating. And
Nice.
actually,
I wrote
it was
that one down.
our friend Jason Page
Yeah,
who was a prior guest and who, because of his residency in South London, first put me on to this gentleman,
nice.
who I then saw speaking on an LSC conversation or panel or some bullshit. So again, nerd shit that I love,
Yeah.
and I saw him hyping up this book. I bought it and really, really, really enjoy it. Really enjoy it. Listen, We've been talking a long time, but before we go, and I, you know what it is. This is what it was.
This is what it was.
This is what it was. This with a chessboard in the middle of us instead of
Yeah,
fucking.
we're sitting on a tree,
Yeah,
smoke weed like between classes
sitting literally
on the
under the
roots, like, 'cause the
philosopher's
grass would be
tree.
wet. Yeah,
Yes,
the
on the
grass
roots
would
of
be
the.
wet, so you couldn't sit on the grass. So we had to sit on the roots, and
Yeah.
like we just hid in plain sight. No one really ever saw. We
Oh
just
well, people saw. People saw.
that's
I
true.
remember quite specifically. Another friend of ours, who I hope is going to get on the show. I'm trying to get on the show, Pierre.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
get Pierre.
yeah,
Come
yeah,
on.
yeah. I gotta hear about.
Pierre and
I
I have
gotta hear about the
absolutely
actors
stayed in touch.
gang.
He moved to New York, so I got to hang out with him there, and
Yeah,
like that's so Pierre and I, and then he moved to LA. Like, anyways, yes, get Pierre on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I gotta hear about what he's doing about the actors gang and Tim Robbins, all the bullshit. I want to hear the bullshit. But I am so high that I forgot why I even brought that up. What was I saying?
You were wrapping things up,
I
and I
don't
just
know.
we were also talking
Oh,
about philosopher's tree, like the
oh
actual
yeah, 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 yeah. That's
origins
where.
of your metaphor.
Yes. So the physical philosopher's tree was a tree on the main quad of CU Boulder campus, where we would smoke the weed,
Yes.
uh, and it was very illegal at that time still. And
Campus during passing period, it was rather
during yeah,
flagrant.
yeah, it was very flagrant. In fact, I remember specifically an author, a celebrated author now at CU Boulder, Dr. Polly McLean, had
Oh,
walked past us at a point, and I was sat there. Pierre was there. I don't remember who else was there. I would have sworn you were there. It would have made sense if you were. And she looked at us all, and she looked over at Pierre, and Pierre looked at her, and she said, "Mr. Adeli, are you coming to class?" And he said, "Yeah, okay, I gotta go, guys."
I
And
gotta
that, so yeah, no, it was known, and some of the smartest professors on campus tried to fuck with us about it. They were not successful, and we still went to their
no, we
classes
didn't,
stoned.
and we still did well.
That's did very well.
Still
I
got a
think I
degree.
graduated with like a 3.89. I was quite comfortable with the idea that I was that high. Uh, so the last thing I wanted to do before we actually bounce, and it is the only thing that I want to do that's talk showy at all. You wrote a book. I want you to talk about the book
I did
that
write
you
a book.
wrote, please, if you would.
Okay, hang on, it's on my shelf. Note that I did
Okay,
not
get it.
offer it in the recommendations of the books that everybody should read. Okay, but yeah. So this is my book. It's called The Conspiracy of Capital: Law of Violence in American Popular Radicalism in the Age of Monopoly. Now that's a mouthful, but it's
Bring
basically
that
about
over to the. Bring that
what's that?
center one more time. Bring the center to camera one more time. There we go. Pull back.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So
There we are.
yeah, I haven't
That's it.
spoken about this book in a long time, but yeah, so it's about the revolutionaries and socialists and radicals in the late 19th, early 20th century that basically went to war against the emergence of global capitalism. And they did
Mm,
so under the terms established by the conspiracy doctrine in law. So the idea is that, the state and their allies in capital considered any resistance, unions especially, to be criminal conspiracies. And the law conspired, literally with ruling elites, to criminalize any act of social resistance. Any organized social movement or unionization struggle could easily be struck
mm,
down through the legal codes through the concept of conspiracy. Now, those subject to those laws, people trying to form social movements to wage war on global capitalism, resist World War I to win the 8-hour day. Let's be more practical here, like to win the 8-hour day, to win things like weekends, to end child labor, to make a decent living and life for working class people in the United States, working class immigrants in particular. That these organizations then were deemed a conspiracy by the state, prosecuted, destroyed, demolished, the kind of repression we see on the streets today. Like that's
mm-hmm,
very old, right? Has a long and deep
mm-hmm.
history. Policing through red squads and judicial repression. But those organizations, the Socialist Party, the IWW, various radical groups, the early communists, articulated actually the capitalist state as the actual criminal conspiracy. The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, and I know I'm deep in the weeds here,
bring it.
Criminal conspiracy as a conspiracy in restraint of free trade. So a monopoly itself is legally defined. A corporate monopoly is defined as a conspiracy, and that capitalism itself is the great conspiracy against working class people who seek, right, not to, live to work, but merely to work so that they can live. And so this huge wave of revolutionary radicalism, driven by effectively left-wing conspiracy theories, was crushed, in about 1919, in the Red Summer of 1919. It was defeated. This huge wave of American radicalism was essentially wiped out in what became the very conservative and reactionary 1920s. But it lives on in what I would kind of think of as the history of left-wing conspiracy theories, of the state assassinating, labor leaders, framing up, social justice activists like the Black Panthers, and the stuff that, in a way, it comes back to Ward Churchill, like all those stories he used to tell us about, Pine Ridge and knowing Fred Hampton and what happened to them. And, there's a long and deep history there of radical critiques of monopoly capitalism and state power. And so this is, I did a lot of Colorado history. There's a lot of mining history. I'm fascinated with bombings. So there's a lot of this is about bombings and the trials that come after bombings. So I know the whole history of American terrorism, left-wing American terrorism. It's totally fascinating stuff, like anarchists dynamiting and killing mine bosses, all this stuff. It was fascinating stuff to research. It was laborious to write, but it exists in the world. Don't buy it from Amazon. Get it from the University of Massachusetts Press. But it was definitely a pleasure to, it feels good to see it in print,
Yeah, I'm sure. How long did it take you to write that motherfucking thing?
So which seems to be what everyone wants to talk about when they talk about Trump right now.
So how long did it take you to write that thing?
I'm not going to tell you
that. Okay, fair enough.
We found the thing at the end here. That's how we have to, that I would not talk about. Because before he's asked me, dear 60s, maybe 64 listeners at this point, because we've gone on for too long. He asked me, is there anything you don't want to talk about? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah. So you know what? We found it. Congratulations.
Found it. I got it. I got the thing. And there's, I'm telling you, there's deep, dirty history there that could have come up. And for that to be the thing that would be touchy, that's, I love it. I love it. Well, I've got this play that I have written, that I've co-written, that has staged exactly once, and it was only a read-through, that its progress is entirely on me. It has fucked up the relationship, all the things. I did that. I admit this. It is creative doing, but it just got stuck. It's stuck. It's starting to get a little loose, but I will say this: by the time it is premiered and running anywhere, no one is ever going to know how long it took me to write the shit. So I'm going to say it. Oh yeah, no, it happened over this one weekend when I went to Oakland and we had a writing. Yeah, no, it was over this weekend. We're writing another play about the weekend when we wrote the play. We'll write that in a weekend too. Or something. Hey, Mike, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for being a part of the community, not just today, but I know you told me that you watched this nonsense with one of your progeny, with one of your children. Okay, that's a choice. Yeah. My daughter saw it too while she was cooking chicken. So, Parent of the Year award, please. I'll take that now. All right, buddy. Hey, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, give it up one more time for my people. Michael. Huh? That was cute. Um, let's see. What? I don't know. So it's gonna be bullshit like that. During Super Smarty Week, we're gonna talk shit about white people. We're gonna talk shit about the shit that fuels them. Because that when I say Super Smarty Week, what I'm talking about is people who are smart enough to know that that is true, and it's not a contentious debate. If uh, if you are interested, and I don't know why. Yeah, I mean, it's fine to be if you like that. If you think debate serves, or like questions that are more instigatory than inquisitive. Uh, I was on Talks with Tiger. You could hear that. It was a little like that. Um, I think it was good. I think it makes good radio. Good radio. Jesus Christ. Uh, I'm unold. Anyway, fuck you, Michael. That's Michael. Uh, I was see now Michael's laughing at me. I wasn't going to make a big deal out of it, and I had the same debate going on in my head with my other friend, Michael, who called me he twice. Michael, they can't see you, so you can't. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing. You just have to sit there and eat this.
I do.
That's you do, you do, you do. We're working on it though, because do you know what? We grew up in the same generation. I fuck up all the time. It is what it is, and Michael is a dear, dear friend of mine. So anybody who says I hate white people. You've met the one I like. Hey, this has been Smoke and Mirrors. Do me a favor. If you have an extra shekel, if you have an extra doubloon, if you have an extra ruby, a pence, half pence, and you like art, and you like art by people who are more interesting than straight white men, uh, you could drop some of that to the Marsha P. Johnson Foundation. They can be found at marshap.org/donate. I would like it very much if you would donate to them. If last month you did donate, had donated to the Okra Project, thank you very, very much for that. Food is essential to our survival, and myself and the other artists of the world would argue that art is also essential to our survival. So please consider supporting the foundation. That would be absolutely delicious if you would do that. Yes, I do have a white friend, so I cannot be racist. That is absolutely right. Uh, hey, there's evidence. You've met them. This has been Smoke and Mirrors. Listen, if you like this shit and it's somehow interesting to you, I appreciate that. One thing that you could do to support it that's absolutely free, because it is important that we do this for free. I've told you this before. I'm going to tell you this again. I'm never going to charge you. Zuckerberg is trying to get me to charge you. I am not going to do that. This I'm not going to bogart. One thing that you could do to contribute, because I don't want your cash necessarily, what you could do is share this. Just share it. Share it on your page. Share it to a friend. Share it to a frenemy. Share it to an enemy. Make a new enemy and let them know that I chat with race traders. Let your black friends who are black Israelites who think that it's bad to talk to white people share it with them. Let them have a word with me. I'd like that. I will remind them that I smell better than they do. And please share it with your white supremacist uncle, because fuck your Uncle Bob. I'm really talking about my Uncle Bob. He's dead. Fuck him. If you like my face or the words I say without the context of this sound, follow me at IG at El Caballo Negrito or Twitter at Caballo Negrito. If you have words you want to say to me or say to my production team about this whole mess that are longer than what can be posted in the comments of a production, please give us a little write to us at Smoke and Mirrors CCB. If you're on the team, you know that that's for comedy, culture, and bullshit. smoke and mirrors, ccb at gmail. And very, very, very lastly, if you're not in jeopardy, if your job isn't fucked up, and you want to drop five on it, I'm not going to tell you not to. The places you can do that are Venmo at Carlos, whatever that middle dash is, Wyndham, Windham, like the jazz album owning slave traders, not the hotel slave traders, like them. You could also do that at Cash App if you're a Cash App person, dollar sign CK Wyndham. You could do that at PayPal, PayPal me, CK Wyndham. This has been Smoke and Mirrors. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time. Thank you for being here for Smarty Smart People Week. Tomorrow, I am going to be here talking about some shit. I have some things on my mind that are actually going to be organized into a thing, and I'm going to say them. And then on Thursday, please come back again because then I'll be in conversation with Linda Shavers. I think it's Shavers. Yes, it's got to be Shavers. It is Shavers. I know this. I hope I know this. They're going to tell me and correct me when I talk to them. That's going to be on Thursday. Friday, I'll be with you one more time. I love you. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself. Please wash your hands. And for God's sake, wear a mask. To the white people who have not been wearing them, here's the secret Altoids. Okay, have a great day. Bye. Love you. Bye bye.